We are Neuphony team, and today we have Bhavya Madan and Ria Rustagi with me. They are the co-founders at Neuphony. Bhavya is the CTO, and Ria is the CEO. So a lot of mental health related stuff. All those questions we'll answer today, and we'll ask them how they run this company. We'll ask them a few questions about how their experience was on Shark Tank, exciting names like Forbes, Google for startups. So a great conversation waiting for us to happen, and we'll experience some interesting stuff here. So my first question to you would be, and this is to both of you, uh, first, can you explain what Neuphony is and how it works, but in very simple words, so that people there and me I can understand.
Neuphony is a brain wearable device. It's like a smartwatch, but for your brain. So, like you use smartwatch to monitor your heart rate, your pulse, your oxygen, your steps, and then you take the right measures to change that and improve your physical health and fitness. Similarly, with Neuphony, you can monitor different things about your brain: stress, focus, readiness, fatigue, and actually take conscious decisions in your life to change that and improve that.
So, just to add to this a little bit, so people who actually use these fitness trackers, one of the parameters or a few parameters you might have heard a lot are maybe resting heart rate or VO2 max. At what frequency? What is your VO2 max and how can you improve it? So the only difference between what we are doing is rather than giving you a range that this is where you should be, what Newfree does is it takes something that what's happening with your brain right now and whatever you're doing, for example, meditating or listening to a particular music or even going out for a sport, what was happening before that and what's happening after that. So it's more of a snapshot, instantaneous snapshot of what changed with this particular exercise. So, for example, on a particular day or a particular instance, one particular thing works for me. For example, I like having a walk after my dinner or my lunch. And I see that my sleepiness or my readiness score is going down. That doesn't mean it is going to be the same case every day because your mental health is not just a function of how much you meditated. It's not a function of just what you ate and what you did. It's a combination of everything. How well you slept, not necessarily how long, but how well, and how well you're actually adhering to a particular phase is kind of a thing that. So just bringing everything together, what you want to do with Newphony is that every time you want to bring a change, bring a new habit or break a habit, you want to see how you can make it cognitively less tasking for you. Because we like to do things which are easier. And if you can figure out a way that you can make habits easier, it will be something which can help you out a lot.
This sounds a lot like sci-fi, and to be frank, it sounds exciting and scary that this is something that can be done with human brains. So please tell me, what is the sort of technology you're using to get this thing, and how are you able to measure the brain waves? Because we, as human beings, certainly haven't been able to do it in the 1,000 years.
Uh, Not sure about the 1,000 years, but if in last maybe 80, 90 years we've been doing it. So exactly next year it will be 100 years. In 1924, Hans Berger actually figured out that if you place sensors over there, he captured alpha rhythm, hence it's called alpha, the first rhythm which was captured when eyes were closed. So what EEG does, what the technology does is it measures electrical activity. So when our brain communicates, it does it in a electrochemical way. So the chemical aspect is obviously the medical sciences where you work with medicines or neurotransmitters, and the other part is the electrical activity, like my prefrontal cortex, one part of my brain communicating with the other. These electrical impulses, when millions of these are firing together, we can actually capture them with metal placed over your head. This is what EEG is, just capturing your electrical activity. how do we use it in different scores, as Ria was mentioning, is another thing. But to bring with EEG breakdown it very to breaking down EEG very how should I say easily, it is just your electrical activity when you're trying to communicate or doing anything. It's not just that you're I'm trying to say that when you're communicating then only it is going to happen all the time. Anything that's happening. I think you might want to break it down into
No, so since it's about the technology, it's pretty much out there. So EEG, ideally, yes, and a lot of people in Shark Tank actually asked us post Shark Tank, specifically in the comments section of the YouTube video and the different social media posts, that EEG is actually just meant for the diagnosis of neurological conditions. EEG cannot do what we are claiming it to do. But to be honest, yes, but so was your heart rate, so was your blood pressure. These were things that were only accessible. I remember very clearly, I think 15 years back, when my father felt like some sort of a sweating and everything, he had to actually go to the doctor every time to get a basic blood pressure test. So even that technology has significantly improved from where it was. Now your basic resting heart rate, your oxygen, your saturation, everything is available in the form of small rings and wearable devices. Similarly, EEG earlier was only used in the medical segment, but the amount of research that has been done in these specifically 10 years, it's actually very helpful. We can see the impact of meditation on your brain. We can see how looking at positive or negative things changes your brain in the temporary phase. There are multiple neuro marketing and human behavior experiments that have been conducted across the world. So yes, now EEG has the power as a technology to be able to help you with your cognitive information, stress, focus, mood, feelings, emotions, etc.
so just to add something over Ria's answer, uh, for people who actually understand EEG, they would say, but if the technology was available, why was this was not possible, let's say 15 years ago when everybody was working with ECG. So what happens with ECG is that it is a periodic signal. So there are traditional algorithms, signal processing algorithms, which can help you. So this particular part you can ignore if you're not interested in the technical part of it. But EEG is more of a random, not exactly a pseudo random kind. If you know what you're looking for, you can find it, but it won't work with traditional signal processing algorithms. So, like for example, like you did speech recognition. So, if I build a machine learning model which identifies my voice, it might not work with Ria or with Nitish or with anybody else. But once you collect more data and you identify what is the base frequency, so it is not something that you do. The model in itself understands this is the word I'm looking for. For example, Apple. If I say that particular word, what is the signal I should see irrelevant of who is speaking it? Is it a native English speaker or a person whose second language or third language it is? These minute changes only could be captured not with basic traditional signal processing algorithms. It was machine learning who did it. And that's what EEG needed, I guess, because that is where we want to do micro trends analysis, where we see even small patterns repeating. One of the few which were P300 and whatnot, which could have been done with traditional signal processing, but up till then, for example, epilepsy, you see particular spikes coming in the signal. So from your EEG, you see a very different pattern. So you could say, yeah, from EEG, we can classify epilepsy very easily, or attention deficit, where you see a particular slow wave rhythm in a person who didn't have any head trauma or physical trauma. If you see that, then you could, with certain amount of confidence, you can say that this is something we can identify the markers for. But what happens if you're seeing like 19 time series going all in random and then trying to say that I can figure out what is happening there? Cognitively, your brain is not capable to do that, but machines are. So that's what something I wanted to add on.
Interesting. And there's so many points that you've raised about brain injury or trauma or attention deficit and epilepsy. That again raises an interesting question for me. Is safety a crucial concern when dealing with brain related technologies? What measures have you taken to ensure the safety and reliability of Neuphony for users? To elaborate, is EEG safe to use? Are there any things that I should be aware of if I am using EEG, or is it completely okay? Please talk about it if you can.
Yes.
So I'll address two of the things there, and I'll leave everything else to the end. One thing, is it safe to use EEG? So the only discomfort or the problem you might find with EEG that after maybe 15, 20, 25 minutes, you'll feel that you're wearing something. That's it. We not talking about the West, but in India, people don't usually wear hats that common, be it baseball hats or any kind of hat. So if you put something over our head, it is something which is new to us, and that is something which is not. Some people don't find it okay. The sensors are touching in the front, and I'm feeling irritated with it. And obviously, that's why we have a habituation phase. So if a person comes in, we let them sit for 5, 10, 15 minutes before even doing the baseline or doing any sessions with them. That's one part. What we have done to make it safe is something that Ria will answer in terms of certifications and everything that we have taken. So you don't have to rely on our word. It is something medical grade certificate that we have applied and been issued us that we can do this. The second is the most important concern which I had when I started this was how can I make sure that I nobody else gets the data that is associated with our users. So uh, fortunately, unfortunately, I came up with this idea in Germany, which was like GDPR, and then the kind of policy that they have. But it oriented me in a very nice direction from the beginning. So up in the first 2 years in 21 and 22, we didn't have had any of our users' data on our servers. So you can't even get because if it is in your phone, it's not coming to us. You're not we are not concerned that something is going to happen with your data. Up till then, we didn't train any algorithms which was outside the data that we collected. But now what we have done is every user belongs to a class. So which is their age and their gender, no personal geotagging, no personal information like your phone number, your email address, just your age and your gender. And that information is stored in a different database. And this user tagging is stored locally on our system. So every time I want to see your data, if you come to me, I have to look up into 3 different tables to reach your data. And so is if somebody gets hacked, somebody could able to hack into our database and get hold of your data, they could never track it back to you that this is something that is your data. So that was our way of making sure that we don't take data privacy very lightly. One thing which was it still something which is more important is we are trying to follow as good data security policies as there are. So with AWS, Azure, and whatever they offer. But the thing is, these vulnerabilities keep coming up. So this was our way to make sure that even if we have a hack, our system goes down or whatever happens, your data will never be associated back to you. And anything regarding the device safety, I think we are really
We have different certifications when it comes to the device. So any smartwatch would have some very basic certifications. CE being the primary one, we have that. Any smartwatch, not just smartwatch, any electronics device. So the first device, the first certification that would be the CE certification. Next is that to actually sell the product in German market because Germany people have, and as Bhavya mentioned, right? Fortunately, we created and ideated the product from that market, which has the maximum number of regulations possible. So there, they require an ROHS certificate, which we also have. Then there are different ISO certifications.
I think CE is required in Europe. ROHS is everywhere. So
Actually,
electronic safety. Okay.
Which is from Germany, which is a very hard code-driven requirement from that market if you want to sell it over there. And the last would be ISO certifications, which is accepted across multiple countries. But yes, we do have those certifications to manufacture, to create, to sell. Safety regulations, basically. This is from a regulation standpoint of view. So it's possible that you have multiple products available in the market. You could be selling multiple products, but still there are violations. And that's where the our customer usage. We didn't start the journey. Let's just create a product and launch it in the market and then just see how it happens, right? We launched the product, sold it to 10 customers across different countries, saw their experiences from a safety standpoint. Do we see if anything wrong is happening, it should not happen with thousands of people, right? It should not happen with even one person. But worst case scenario, we have to plan in that particular manner. So we started slow and steady, making sure that there are no violations. And in the past, I think 2 years, 2.5 years is since our first set of customers are using the product and they haven't had any negative experience with regards to safety, healthcare, regulation whatsoever, at least in the past 2.5 years of our journey.
So from what I understand, to summarize it up, safety in terms of electricity, nothing, no issues. And secondly, safety in terms of data, that all the stuff is being compliant upon.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay, so with these technical questions, now let's get into the mental health and mental wellness side as well. Let's see how this technology can be beneficial to people, if it can be. Now, those are the questions now. Uh, I'll start with many individuals struggle with stress and anxiety. I mean, anxiety is something that's very common. Most of us here would be working upon our anxiety. How can Neuphony help users manage their stress and improve their emotional well-being? You say that you're an emotional well-being company, your mental wellness, and you help with stress and anxiety. How do you go about it?
This parameter too. So, for example, I am unhealthy physically. I would be stressed about it. I have a family issue. I'll be stressed about it. Stress and anxiety have unfortunately now become a part of our life. So this is something which is very commonly there. Earlier, these were termed in a very different manner. Like my mom used to say becheni. We call it anxiety. Somebody calls it panic attacks. There are different words that are associated to it. Now, when it comes to how Neuphony, or as a matter of fact, neurofeedback can help you with this stress and anxiety is by actually monitoring and understanding your EEG patterns. And this is where I would pass on the loop, because what part of the brain, which brain activity can actually help you understand that. But what my perspective is that we have seen neurofeedback practitioners in a physical setting, one-on-one setting, see help people with stress and anxiety. That's the very basics of it. All our competitors. Also, the very basics are focus and calm. These are the two parameters which a lot of our competitors also are providing to the clients, because that's the first thing that because of the multiple papers published, and Bhavya will comment additionally to that, can be done with neurofeedback as a value proposition to the end clients. We at Neuphony are trying to go a little bit into deep aspect and create a cognitive profile and try to find different parameters from your readiness, also known as mindfulness or vigilance, or to your mental fatigue, or even different parameters that we are internally working on, because we want
Nothing is audible actually.
Sorry, anxiety, and the second was stress. So one thing which is again common knowledge, all stress is not bad. So if I'm doing a maths exam and I'm totally calm, that's not normal. If I'm doing something which I'm trying to learn, my stress should go up. That's our body's natural response, how it has adapted. Now, the thing is, if we stay stuck to that stress, then it becomes problematic because then it affects our immune system and our physical health and our ability to fight or stay away from the problems. Similarly, anxiety is kind of when you're stressed about something which causes you, which makes you anxious. So it's like, and anxiety is more or less our brain's response to stress. Anxiety, I don't think so, happens without stress. It's like I'm sitting very calmly and I'm anxious. It has to be related to a particular event. Now, in my entire description, you will find one common theme, which is you. When you're thinking about something that you have to do, something related to you, that is what is causing you to be stressful and anxious. Hence, you see the West particularly going towards mindfulness practice, which teaches you basically just to be in the present. I'm not saying that's the holy grail of meditation. That's all you should do all day long. Obviously, there are limitations to it. After how long it will work? Will it reach a plateau? And if I want to break other things, I can maybe get into later. But if you just think of what could be the thing that I can train my brain for, is that rather than you're thinking about yourself, something that you have to do, just be present in that particular moment, like me sitting on this chair, my elbow touching this, my ear hearing that Buddha waterfall uh, going around, people walking. I am not thinking about anything. Now you can achieve that not just by, for example, sitting and counting your breaths. It could be a very particular one particular exercise. Actually, a friend of mine recommended was talking gibberish. It cannot be a pattern. It cannot be anything. You just have to blurb out words, a language which doesn't exist. And for that, you have to consciously make sure you're not repeating the words with starting with single syllable or have a tone to it. Now try doing that, and you all your mental activity will be in that consumed in that particular task. Now, what is the benefit of it in terms of neuroscience? So there's a brain network called default mode network, which is centered around location PZ, and then you'll find certain neuronal connection in the orbital prefrontal cortex as well. Sorry, in the orbital prefrontal cortex as well, but majorly being around this part. Now, this particular network has been associated with self-referential thought, which means if I leave you in a room, the first thing you're going to think is, I'm hot, it's so hot here, or maybe it's too cold, or I have to do this. Why am I here? Or whatever. It is something related to you, your family, your pet, your kid, whatever it is. Now, if you want to break that, that is where these mindfulness practices help you. So when we say we can measure your stress, what we actually do is we want to calm down your default mode network, that you don't get stuck on a particular thought. Now, how do we do that? As I said, Neuphony doesn't give you ranges. Like, for example, I had a blood test for cortisol. What are my HDL and LDL levels? This should be the range, and am I in the range or not? That could be done with EEG, and that's another field called QEEG, which I think I also mentioned on Shark Tank episode as well. But if you have questions regarding that, we'll go into it. But continuing on this, what we do is we want to identify where your activity was when you started a particular exercise. For example, the gibberish exercise I talked about. This is the starting point. Then you did the exercise, and this is where you ended. Now, the idea is not to stop here. Once you stop the exercise, how long were you able to hold that particular state? That is where You want to see that if this particular exercise is helping me take this particular benefit into my life or not. Because every time you want to be present, you cannot start talking gibberish. So doing that maybe for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, do you see that difference in your life? And that is something which is more of a self-realization thing. That yeah, maybe 3 months back, if this particular thing would have been happening with me, this should have been or this would have been my reaction. And if you're aware of that, that's what we want to track with, or we want to, uh, we aim to provide you with Neuphony. So you can see and look back in 2 to 3 months and see where you started and where you are.
Interesting. A lot of technical stuff. At least this shows that.
As I said, if you're happy with Ria's answer, you can just skip the.
No, at least we get to know that there's a lot of science happening here. Okay, I believe that there's a lot of concepts here that deal with neuroplasticity and neurofeedback also.
Hmm.
So some potential customers or some people would may not be familiar with the concepts of neuroplasticity and neurofeedback. How would you explain this concept in the context of Neuphony and its potential to reshape mental well-being?
Yeah, I'll talk about the neuroplasticity and everything, and then how Neuphony will help is something I can take. Yeah.
Okay.
So there was one, I think, Russian scientist who gave out this theory called operant conditioning, where every time there's a stimuli, there's a physiological change in our body. That's what, if you read books about habit forming or anything, so you might have heard about cues, triggers, what makes us pause or do something. For example, as soon as we turn off the light and lie on our bed, the first thing we do is turn on the AC and switch on our phone or start looking into Instagram. Nobody taught us to do that. Not even Instagram showed that. But how did that become a habit? Is something which is, I don't know who was the first person who did it. Because I didn't discuss it with her, nobody discussed it with you, but you might both do the same thing. This is what the cue is, that as soon as you're turning off the light and you have the access, your mind is free. It means you can't see anything else in the room. The first thing you want to do is make yourself busy. And mobile phones give you the access to do that. Operant conditioning was shown on more of a physiological thing. Neurofeedback is just I would say the same thing, but with neurological parameters like training neural networks. So how does that work is every time you want to, for example, I want to improve my focus for a person in class 1 or class 2 ADHD, where you see slow brainwave patterns very high. It means it is difficult for them to focus on something. And in response, their brain switches the context too much and they seem or appear hyperactive, the ADHD thing. So when you're trying to train your focus, for example, I ask you, you don't have to do anything. Just sit, see, create a dot in front of your eye, which is away from you, and start focusing on it. Or maybe play a game which you don't have to move a lot in. And I want to see where is there a change in the slow brainwave pattern or not. And every time there is, I reward you with something. For example, you're playing a game in a VR environment where every time you're focused, it means your DMN is down and your prefrontal cortex is activated, particularly singular cortex in the prefrontal area. So I reward you by improving your rank in a game, or maybe elevating you, or achieving the goal that you wanted to do in the game. That is a feedback loop that we want to create, and this is what trains our brain to enter into the focus state. Now, as I said in the previous statement as well, you want to see if you can carry that forward in your life or not. And that is what neurofeedback is. That I have identified that this is the thing I want to work on. And once I've done that, I keep on taking those sessions. And maybe 30, 40 sessions later, I want to look back and see, am I able to perform better than what I was doing? So how would you do that? For example, I would ask you to just open a book and read it. If it is if that's something that you want to try, see how many pages you were able to go through before you had a thought that I have to get up, or maybe my leg is hurting, or any, and I'm thirsty, any n number of thoughts, and do that after 40 sessions and see how many pages you were able to go through. I'm not saying it will be drastically different because the protocol you might be following is not working for you. So that's the second feedback loop. In the real life, you see your performance changing. But this is how Neuphony actually trains. We create these protocols in our mobile application and give you the tracks that you can follow. And the more, I think, interesting part, particularly for me, is that when I can go back and look at the data, what was happening then and what is happening now. But in the Neuphony aspect of it, I'll leave it to Ria because she might be able to better explain it.
As Bhavya explained what neurofeedback is, what it can do, we try to use these concepts from the science and technology world into our product. So how we do that is, so we know that meditation has the power to change your brain. We've seen in research papers that the gray matter increases. Now this in very layman words is neuroplasticity, that your brain is like plastic. The more you feed it, let's say knowledge or by training or by brain training, it increases.
So gray matter means improvement of brain health.
Nobody.
No.
Okay.
No. What I mean
There's
to say
a change.
there's a change.
There's a change.
So-
There's a change in your brain.
There's a thing that I think it's cross-cultural, that after teenage years, we are not supposed to, or we are not that fast in learning new things, which is obviously correct because your brain is forming till the age of 21, 22. Sorry, sorry, partner, I wanted to add something. So the idea is that it is not your plasticity or your ability to growth is stopped. It's that your brain is formed completely, but you can still form new neural networks. You can actually train for new things. That is not that at age 50 I cannot learn a new language.
So
You
that is
can
how
learn.
habits and structures of
Our
develop.
brain
So
got-
Interests of area, personality changes.
Actually, I think the paper Ria was mentioning was done in it was done in Harvard, I
Yes,
think.
yes, it's Harvard.
And it was fMRI. What gray matter does, I don't know. I'm not saying that increase in gray matter signifies something. I'm just saying that even at an age which is traditionally thought of you're not able to control anything or change anything, you're able to structurally change
your brain.
your brain.
Okay.
That's what I think she meant
Correct.
with
Okay.
I believe, when we psychologically talk about the fact that there is no age to learn things, you can always change, grow, there is no limitations as to what you can do, unlock your potential, all these things that we as humans say from a psychological standpoint of psychological standpoint actually comes from this particular concept, neuroplasticity, that you can learn, unlearn, grow. If you think that this is something which is very difficult for you, or this is something that you really cannot do, you'll end up doing that. Or not end up doing that, you can do that, and you can also become good at that. That is neuroplasticity in very layman words. So we took meditation as one of the most scientifically proven techniques to change your brain, be more compassionate, be more relaxed, improve your mental health. Just Google the best way to improve your brain health or mental health, and you'll find in peer-reviewed papers meditation as one of the techniques.
Meditation and along with that some breathing exercises.
Yes. So when I say meditation, I actually mean music therapy, breathing techniques, guided meditations, all of this included. Something that helps you be in the moment. Now, neurofeedback. Neurofeedback, which Bhavya explained, we use the ability to read your brain by brain waves, analyzing your brain waves, and how meditation can change your brain together into Neuphony. So we analyze your brain in the baseline. What's your original standing point in a very easy layman words? We give you different types of meditations, and we see what kind of brainwave increases in which part of the brain. Here, in our case, sensor locations increases, and then by using this data, we are able to help.
So what happens? Let's say I know my brain data.
Correct.
Now what?
That is something that I wanted to address after Ria as well. It's like I maybe bought a drill or bought a tool and I know I can make holes in the wall. Now what? Now the activity part doesn't stop at the buying aspect of it. It is something that you have to have a goal. For example, you're going for that cycling trip, right? Before that, if there is a cool down phase, which most probably would be for last, I think, week or so, in that cool down phase, you don't want your mind to be in a state which is constantly harming the rest aspect of it.
Right.
So if that's the aim, identify what are the ways I can achieve that. Second, which one is effectively working for you. And this effectively working for you is the Neuphony part, where I can tell you which of the 10 things you read on internet works for you and do that. And yeah,
What you should do is our brain gym part. That is how we actually created the whole concept of brain gyms. So we took the business model, how our competitors used to operate. They created a product, they sold it to researchers, they sold it to end consumers, and that's it. Fortunately or unfortunately, we come from the market of India and Asia, and there was no other company addressing as, let's say, dedicatedly as us to the Asian market. And so since this technology was new, there was a lot of lack of education and awareness. So when we sold the product to first of our Indian consumers, they were like, see, it's comfortable, it's nice, I see, oh, I'm 80% stressed, now what? Literally, you won't believe, April 2022 to somewhere around August 2022, the only problem that I was facing was how to find the answer to Abgya. We tried, it was a very different question. We didn't know how to address that question, ki lack of education, or how do I create education so fast. So now it becomes a service model where I'm constantly supporting my clients over a call. See, now try this, or tell me how it's working. So it's kind of like a remote neurofeedback session. But then that would mean I have to hire a lot of neuroscientists, neurofeedback practitioners. Neurofeedback again was new in India, which means I have to go to the international market, very expensive. So the whole thing was not working. So what we there did was we brought a lot of wellness and mental health practitioners and experts. These people using psychometric analysis or using their techniques were uh, at ease or were used to helping you out. So they knew the answer to Abgya. They were trying different answers to Abgya. They will make you do meditation, yoga, breathing, music therapy, walk, healthy eating, all of these things. They lack of data. And there was another problem that our clients were facing. All these wellness professionals were like, finally, there is some company who understands our language. People were speaking about theta brainwaves, and the end consumers were not understanding कि theta होता क्या है, हमें क्या पता. Their problem was lack of data. My problem was lack of solution. We actually merged it together, gave them our product. Here is the data. But if our consumers want a remote session, that why they cannot improve their data, can you recommend them something? So it's a remote coaching, neurofeedback, or psychotherapy or wellness session, meditation session that you can take from our brain gym practitioners as a B2C client as well. So the meditation and the tracking, both as a concept, because the other problem that we were facing was people were like, I do chanting, but I don't meditate. I do breathing, but I don't meditate. I listen to music, but I don't meditate, because meditation word had a different connotation towards it. So we also then we started calling brain training, brain games, brain puzzles, music therapy. A lot of marketing had to be done around the existing technologies of neurofeedback, mental health, and meditation as well from our standpoint. And that actually came from the founder of Your Story, Shraddha Sharma, because she said that you cannot use the word mental health. It is a taboo. You cannot change taboo. It's like taking the biggest thing on your shoulders and trying to fight the word.
But again, the problem comes in that there are so many people in India who have mental health problems. Either they do not know
Correct.
that they have mental health problems, or they know but they can't openly address that issue. So how are we tackling that question? And I think this will again come back to the same signs of stress and anxiety. But yeah, how are you dealing with depression or ADHD, as you mentioned, or let's say PTSD? So these disorders, neurological disorders, but also diseases, but also mental health, just in general stress and anxiety? If you can elaborate again.
Product and as a business sense, we have just started in this direction. So, which means we are preventive. We are here trying to help you get education and awareness. So, a lot of people over our different social media handles ask us that I have Parkinson, I'm very stressed. Can I use this? I have epilepsy, I'm very stressed. Can I use this? So we say, yes, you can use this. You can monitor your stress levels, but can it diagnose? No. Can it treat? No. But again, so if you go into the depth of it, uh, epileptic seizures, PTSD, anxiety, panic attacks, depression phase, all of these things would have a symptom of a stress or an anxiety, where you can find some patterns where whenever your stress or anxiety were very high, you had a panic attack, you felt that you were not in that phase, all of these things. So we generally say it's not a diagnostic product or it's not a treatment, but yes, this is a tool that you can use to monitor your stress. Just as a goal, make sure that your relaxation levels are 80%, 90%, 70%. Just as that, we have people who use this product and they have particular conditions. I have PTSD. One of our clients has Parkinson. One of our clients has depression. And one of our clients has ADHD. And they are B2C clients. And some of them are actually going to our brain gyms as well. So yes, this product with the right intervention from the right person can be a much better tool. And that's where our brain gyms, who are run sometimes by psychotherapists and psychiatrists also, by the way, will be a much better place for people who are diagnosed with such conditions. So we always say that please use the help of a neuroscientist or a professional when dealing with any neurological condition. So we are trying to create an ecosystem here. While my product is not medical grade, but I know that this data can be used by a medical professional in a much better manner, because we are fighting with a lot bigger problem here. People don't want to go to the hospitals. They don't want to go to doctors. They don't want to go to therapy. People come to us because we are non-therapeutic. And then we tell them that, yeah, your data is actually 98% stress.
Can you talk about some of the clients without obviously taking the names? Some of the success stories that you've had with Neuphony?
Sorry, just before we get into that,
Hmm.
a few things as Ria mentioned, certain parameters which she didn't go much into depth were, for example, as I was mentioning or talking about the physical health, I said resting heart rate, or maybe uh, heart rate variability. It's like very sensitive heart rate variability. Your sleep is bad for a week or something, it will be like off through the roof, and suddenly you'll see that your health is declining. And if it happens for maybe months on stretch, you can spread months at a stretch. I don't know what's happening. Then you can be sure that your physical health is kind of declining.
Yeah.
The same thing is, there's a parameter in our app called PDR. Now PDR is posterior dominant rhythm. Easily put, when you close your eyes, what is the dominant rhythm in your brain, which is the most, because that is the frequency at which your brain sends. So all the information which is coming from your body goes to your brain and it processes and sends it back to your body. So till the age of 16, 17, it's going up. And after that, it should ideally stay stable, somewhere around 8.5 or 9 to 11.5 or 11. If you're going outside that range, for example, I slept like I think 2.5 hours last night. So I'm having a cup of coffee somewhere around 8 or 9 p.m. right now, 8:30. This is going to have an effect on my PDR. Now, if I see my PDR is somewhere around 11, it is bad, but it is not drastic that I have to do something for it. But if I had my sleep, I followed my schedule, and I know my PDR is somewhere around 9.7 to 9.8. It's usually around 9.75. And then my PDR is constantly out of range. It means that there is something which is going on underneath, which I'm not addressing. For example, you talked about anxiety, depression,
Hmm.
In these cases, the PDR usually go high, somewhere around 12, 13, 14. It can also happen with drugs. By drugs, I mean medicines. So if you're going to a therapist and they are prescribing you medicines, it will have an effect on your PDR as well. If you're going through, what should I say, memory related issues, which is also a thing which, if you're going through a lot of stress, that also has an effect because memory are like different types of memories. But for example, Alzheimer's, one of the very early markers, I'm not sure it is proven up till now or not, but we have seen the PDR go down in there somewhere in the range of 6, 6.5. So this is a very sensitive parameter which changes because after the age of 16, I'm saying you should stay at that particular stage. And if it is not happening, then it means you're not following your circadian rhythm. You're
So
not
this is a
sleeping.
good marker of determine if the brain is healthy or not.
It's, yeah, you can say brain health. I was talking about more of a entirety of the health. Because
Okay.
as I said, it's not a function of any one thing.
Okay.
It will be affected even by a cup of coffee or any maybe like you did just after football, you did a session
Hmm.
where you saw the high activity at 11:30 in the night. So that's my point. If you have that particular exercise, your heart rate is elevated, your HRV is elevated, your smartwatch can tell you that you're not in the best
Hmm.
state to
Hmm.
sleep, right? 2 hours, 3 hours before going to bed, if you're elevated, your heart rate is elevated, that's not the right way of going to bed. Ideally, after sunset, your body temperature should start going down, following the traditional aspect of it. For people who stay up at night like me, we have a different pattern to it. But there's a cyclic pattern which follows. But now I want to push myself because there are some certain deadlines, so I'm sleeping less. Maybe if I do it for a week or two and then resume back, it will be fine. That's not an issue. But if I keep on doing it for years on end, obviously it is going to have an effect on my
Yeah.
body. But the first place you can actually detect is in the
The brain.
PPR. Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I said that this is one parameter that you can talk about. Similarly, when we talk about mood detection, it's not that we want to talk about your uh, it. How do we detect mood is the disbalance between the two lobes. Now, how did that came into fruition was for bipolar patients, they detected when they were swinging between manic and depressed episodes, what was happening in the electrical activity. So when you see in our app that you're most of the time you're between neutral or neutral
Yeah.
and slightly positive and neutral and slightly negative, that's perfectly fine. That is where you should be.
Hmm.
It's not if you're feeling happy, it should be through the roof. Because manic episodes are like I can jump from fifth floor and nothing will happen to me, or depressed episodes are like I can't physically get out of this bed. So
Yeah.
you don't want to be in those extremes, but if that is happening, this could be a marker which you can use.
Wait, I have a question.
Huh.
So,
Hmm.
uh, is there a pattern? So, we saw something yesterday when we were doing a data collection of four of our team members.
Hmm.
Out of four, three people
Hmm.
had actually every 10 seconds their mood was changing in desktop application real time.
Mood change is a different thing.
What's that?
I am talking if the impedances are same. So to keep the reliability of the data, make sure that there
But
are
to this
not
point, when we see the same data for people 30 plus, for example, I'm pretty sure if I see it on you or me, even as a matter of fact, we'll see more stability with regards to the moods not changing every 10 seconds on an average. Uh, is there something with regards to teenagers, adults, moods, patterns, something like that driven by a protocol?
empirically there could be because you saw it. I haven't read about it, so I can't comment if this is the threshold where your mood should stabilize. Like PDR, it is something even at the age of 35, 40, you can experience the same thing because you're not aware of the kind of trauma what is going to happen. By trauma I mean not the physical trauma, more of something happens in your life and suddenly you go into a a state which you're not recovering from. Now, obviously, you will go in that state, but the goal there is, as I said, create your goal. The goal there is how can I bring it back? So not relying completely on medication. I'm not saying cut it off because if you're having that kind of depressed episodes or manic episodes, obviously have those medications, but don't be reliant on them. That's what. How do you manage them with the medication is something that you want to first try out. Once you're okay and maybe improved a little bit, then see how much can I reduce before having that kind of a slide back. So don't completely be like people usually do in India. 5 दिन की वो दवाई लिखी थी after 3 days we are like we are done हो गया हमारा we I am fine now. The problem when you do that with neurological medicines is if the condition comes back, it comes back way harder. So whenever you're planning to take any medication or leave any medication, go and talk to your doctor who prescribed it. Because that is something that I think when she said ADHD patient, this was the guy I did the pod session for, which I usually don't. And he mentioned that within I think 3 months he took the medication and then stopped taking it. And that was our first recommendation that if you want to work on your mental health, not going deeper into neurological conditions, because there are better and more informed people than me to have statements on the subject. But until unless you have your diet, your sleep, and your exercise, not going to gyms, but at least like having 10 minutes walk or 15 minutes walk or something number of hours. It's only 7 hours I'm sitting on my desk. Get up, have a little waddle around the office, and then come back and sit on your desk. That's the amount of exercise I'm talking about. Until unless these are there, there is no amount of meditation or no amount of breathing exercise which can help you. So focus on those aspects as well. So don't be limited in terms of what is going to help me when I talk specifically when I talk about neurological conditions.
So there are two outtakes from what you said. One is that balance is important.
Balance, it's like it feels like oversimplified version of what I said, but at a younger age, why did I come to this words? At a younger age, I was able to get through 2 to 3 days of non-sleeping. Straight up. I didn't needed sleep. I was not reliant on coffee. It was just something that I was naturally good at. Now, even if I can't stay up for one night. That's the difference that happens with age. I'm not sure how, but what happens exactly in the body. Again, there are more informed people than me. But if that's the case, if I have a particular neurological condition that I'm informed of, if you want to work on that, then the first thing you want to correct is the balance. I'm not saying other people shouldn't consider balance, but if you're aware of that particular thing, correct these three first. If you're not sleeping correctly, if you're not having your diet correct, and if you're not exercising enough or moving enough, no amount of therapy, no amount of meditation, no amount of medications are going to help you out because you're going to be more and more reliant. Hence, I was coming to the neurological conditions part that I want to stress more on that. That if we are talking of that, just make sure that you keep your healthcare provider included in the loop. Don't just say that and now I'm fine, I'm going to stay away from the drugs and this is going to correct everything. So keep those considerations because these people have trained multiple years in their life to give you.
So it's a mix of everything.
Yeah.
Right. So now I'd like to have quick questions from the team here.
Yeah.
And from the people who have joined in the call. And yeah, so every once in a while I'll keep on asking and you can answer them. So feel free to ask any questions if people you have any. Meanwhile, I'll start with the previous questions which are there. Um, so I think the one of the most important ones is where can we get a live demo? The device.
Yes, you can schedule a call with our associates, one of which is Nitish, and we can give you an online demo if you are based out internationally. So, but if you're based out even in Europe, we have 7 brain gyms in Europe, 2 in Portugal, 1 in Italy, 1 in Spain, 2 in Germany, 1 in Brussels, and 1 in Netherlands. And we have 15 brain gyms in India, which are our experience centers and wellness centers where also you can take these sessions. The link to book a session or reach out to our even European brain gym partners would be there on our website under book a session. And if you are not in, unfortunately, one of those locations, you can just reach out to us and we are happy to schedule a live online demo for you.
Perfect. Coach Mandeep asks, what kind of solutions you provide if I have stress? I know we've discussed this, but in one line, if you want to say that again.
So we have actually created like a Excel which based on your different parameters, stress, focus, readiness, mindfulness, or mental fatigue, we recommend 4 different activities. We let the user choose these activities. Scientifically, they have proven to really help majority of the clients. And some people like some activity, everybody's brain is different. And sometimes you might not be just good with one activity. There would be a series of activities that you need to do with the person, which would include ideally a guided meditation, music, breathing techniques, brain games, mandala painting, etc. These are the types of recommendations that we provide to our brain gym practitioners. And through directly to the B2C users, we say try every experiment with everything from, let's say, different green teas to healthy eating dietary requirements to even different types of meditations. Every meditation, Sadhguru, Ravi Shankar, mindfulness, try all the different meditations and see the results and be your own judge.
The point is that it is individualized, and what works
Exactly.
for person A might not work for person B.
It is kind of a double-edged sword. Because if you talk about a person who's actually experiencing stress, he doesn't want to do that kind of a experimentation. Sometimes people need spoon feeding. So as she mentioned, ab kya wala aspect. So as you mentioned, I think the name was coach. So I'm hoping you're coaching some athletes or young athletes or aspiring athletes. So if that's the case, as Nitish, he himself is a cyclist, there are phases in your trainings. So just before coming up with for example, a fighter for a boxer, there are phases where they do intensive pushing their boundaries every time. And just before, for example, 2 weeks, they have a slow down phase where they just want to relax for the last few days. For each of those phases, you as a coach will know the athlete more. So you will have the right, this is what I think you should try. But rather than being it, maybe a loop like after 5 days or 7 days, you get to know that is it working or not, or maybe after the fight on a regular basis or on hourly basis, you can actually see what's happening with their brain. So the feedback loop is shortened. I'm not going to tell you how to coach your athletes. I'm going to tell you what you're telling them in different phases is working for that particular individual or not.
Interesting. One question for Bhavya directly. Do we have mapping? Which kind of solution is for which neurocircuit?
Okay, so I think this is a good time to go into QEEG, but I'll keep it short. So with QEEG again, what you do is different areas of your brain are called Brodmann areas. So each and every Brodmann area is associated with a cognitive skill. For example, listening, writing, all these skills, artistic, or every part, they are performed by a combination of different Brodmann areas or different neural networks which are communicating with each other. So, for example, if you have a 19 or a 32 channel cap, you know for a person of age 29 uh, and a male, this should be the range I should be in at a particular time. So, for example, let's remove time between 9 and 5. This is the state I should be in. Now, for example, I have huge amount of beta or high activity at this region, particularly in the singular cortex, FZ, F3, F4 region. This is some place where there are databases called Joule, NeuroGuide, who are going to take that information and going to tell you what are the symptoms that we can see from the EEG data itself. Now, bringing all this together, this is what you do with medical reports as well, where you see this is the range I should be in. Now, how does that range came to be? So people who were healthy, they took their blood, they averaged out what was the deviation between them, and then gave this is the range that you should be in. There is no hard and fast rule why the blood pressure should be 80/120, 80/120, why it can't be 90/130. So with EEG, this can be done. But now coming to this technology, where we had to bring down the cost because these 19 and 32 channel, they cost upwards of 15 lakhs. So to bring the cost down, we reduce the number of sensors. Now, once you do that, you cannot directly plug in into those databases. So either one, we create our own database, which we are planning to do, or second is work on creating a baseline and then see what is happening per session on weekly basis or on monthly basis and give you a feedback if you're going in the direction or not. So now coming to the question where you mentioned, do we have brain network mapping? So the three networks that we wanted, that we captured when we created this device was central executive network, which is your frontal and prefrontal cortex. Second was salience network, which is kind of known as the switching network. So when you're switching the context between something you're thinking about yourself to something that you have to do, for example, the work you were doing was supposed to focus. This switching happens through the salience network. And then there is default mode network, which I already talked about. Now, these are the three networks which we capture with Neuphony. And what can we tell about you from these networks is because this device was created keeping meditation in mind. So when we talk about mental health and meditation and breathing exercises, this is the areas where you would see most of the meditation practices. Either they will ask you to focus on something like your breath or on a mantra or an image or something like that, or they will ask you to detach and just observe what is happening with your thoughts, visualizing your thoughts, just playing the image of it and not attaching to anything. So the default mode network, central executive network, and these two switching between the two. This was what we kept as a base and built this device on. So if you want, luckily it also captures task positivity network. So for example, if I give you a goal that you have to focus on this particular point, this is the brain network which will tell your body or your sensory motor cortex to do this. That is also covered, but that was a lucky fluke, I would say. But after that, if you want me to capture sensory motor cortex or occipital, this is something which I cannot do. So obviously, when you bring the number of sensors down, we had to have a goal as well. Like I'm asking you to keep a goal. We kept a goal of identifying how your meditative practice or your mental health improvement journey that you're trying to do, how it is progressing. And this is what the three networks that we kind of focus on are the base of our device and our mobile application.
Awesome. Another one. Have you tried any known medication products or commercial products with Neuphony?
Medication.
Yes.
Uh,
Or any commercial products as well to see how the data changes of the brain.
okay. We haven't, but there is a client of ours in Netherlands. He has actually tried Neuphony with his medication, and he has actually altered his medication. So he had ADHD. He has ADHD, and I think he used to take more grams. What was recommended by the doctor, but then it actually left him a little bit anxious. And I'm actually trying to quote him, but then he tried to reduce his medication and see if the person felt better or not. So our client has experimented with his ADHD medication. And while we are not the best judge here, we believe you or your practitioner are the best people to take this conscious decision regarding to your well-being. The data is there. The data will not lie. The data will tell you what it sees in the field brain. We as people and as the founders of this company, or even with our experience, are not the right people to recommend you with regards to your medication. Uh, People specifically in Amsterdam or in different European countries have experimented with different things. There was a person who had experimented with mushrooms. There were people with ADHD medication. Yes, people have done this as a sort of experimentation with the product, but unfortunately or fortunately, we haven't done this.
Well, to give you a context, I myself have uh, anti-anxiety medications and a couple of vitamins and all of these things. So I have tested myself, seen that my data changes. What exactly that means is something that I'm not aware of. But I've seen that without having medications or after having medications, my data has always changed. The level of gamma waves has obviously changed a lot. And from what I understand, that gamma waves do change when there are a lot of psychoactive drugs playing a role. So that's something I know. But yeah, we might have to do some research to know about. Uh, One more quick question we've got from Sami Zignani. Uh, I think Ria, you might know him. Uh, how does the assessment work? Do I have to do it daily with Neuphony device, or is the assessment done once in a while at the user's request?
Sammy and to all our other clients, we've actually created a biohacker plan. Why? Because we want the users to get the most value of the product from the first week of use. There are different products out there. There are different techniques that you can try. How can data really help you is by trying different techniques. So we've created this 1 week plan where 3 times a day, post meals generally, you do a neurofeedback session in the morning, afternoon, and evening, and you do it for a week. What you can learn from this first set of data is that, and always try different meditations. See if something is driving, see if there is a positive change in your results. What you learn is the time that you should meditate. What's your problem area? Are you a person whose core problem is stress and then you get distracted? Or your problem is that you're very distracted, which will eventually result into a lot of stress, obviously. So we can help you detect your core problems because you'll see that one parameter is always lower. And the third would be which meditation gives you the best results in an instantaneous manner. And then using this information in the second week, you can choose one time of the day, one meditation, and one goal. And then you can start building towards it to see at least a change and actual shift in your baseline, which basically means your average should change. In the first week, if your average is 30%, your average in the next week should be 40, 50. Not exactly in this growth manner, but obviously, ideally, there should be some growth. It can be 30, 32, 35, and then immediately 40, 50 after a few weeks. Or it can be other way because it's different for every brain again. But the whole point is that there should be a gradual shift in your baseline.
So one thing that we are uh, planning to change this particular protocol. So what we are explained that what's happening week over week. Up till now, for example, once you started week one, you have somewhere around 7 p.m. Your relaxation is like 30-35%, and your focus is at 85. Just a random number that I'm throwing out. Even if you do, for example, breathing exercise that you've figured out that this helps me bring up my relaxation and calm me down. Even after 7 weeks, you can have the same results, but it doesn't mean that it hasn't had an effect. The reason being the scores, the percentage. I think I'll go in that rabbit hole again. Coming back, keeping this as a bookmark, what 50% focus means. But if you see the same source again, it doesn't mean you haven't improved from what happened at week one. The idea is here your baseline was different and now your baseline is different. So we don't store your baseline, we just keep a track what was happening week over week. So when we show you week over week progress, this is the change I was coming to, that rather than showing you the scores that you were at 35, 40, 45, we are going to show you how your baseline is moving. And is it moving in the right direction or not? Or is it having an effect on you? Because if the baseline is moving in the right direction, even the same scores are radically different. Because personally, you'll feel different. Now, coming to again, bringing this into the picture, people have asked me so many times, what does 50% focus mean? Is it that I am half distracted and half focused on what I'm doing? That's actually not the case. So to summarize the data in the graph, what we did was every second we have somewhere around 2.5 data points. So 250 combined, summarized into 2.5. Those by that I mean every 400 millisecond we take a snapshot of the brain activity, and it keeps on changing. So for example, if you did a session for 10 minutes, now imagine 600 into 2.5, which means 1500 data points I have to plot. Obviously not something which you would like to see on a small real estate. So what we did was we combined the data from 10 seconds, and we saw if you are able to push yourself above a particular threshold, it was marked as positive, and if you're not, then it was marked as negative. And that is the percentage that we show you. So 50% focus means in that 10-second window, you were focused for 5 seconds and not focused for or distracted or in the other zone in the remaining five. That's what the percentage is.
Okay.
Just because I wanted to keep it in a video. So
People have
I
asked
know.
this question.
No, but this makes a lot of sense what you mentioned about the baseline, because in sports also, how we measure the fitness of a person very much depends on the resting heart rate.
Yeah.
So if my resting heart rate is 80 and 2 months later my resting heart rate goes down to 50, that means my fitness has increased a lot, irrespective of my maximum heart rate being 190 or 200 or 180. So those zones will change of how much my heart rate has gone, but my resting heart rate because has changed, or in the mental sense, if my baseline has changed,
Yes.
that will
And
improve the health.
baseline is not like in resting heart rate, there's just one single parameter.
Hmm.
So in focus, we talk about different baselines. In relaxation, there are different baselines. In fatigue or mental readiness, these are different baselines. By baseline, I mean what were the brain activity when you're at your rest.
Right.
That is what we want to understand at different sensor locations. For example, in focus, I want to see this. What is happening here and what is happening here. The net should be working, but the light is not.
Camera really work
It is working, but I think because we have the router for backup for the router, so net won't go. But I think it was an issue with the. Don't do this. I don't want to do a candlelight recording.
And at least people would know that we are here.
Uh-huh.
So I hope you all can see us. There was an electricity cut. So we are just getting the lights and everything back. And I think we should be visible to all of you. So we'll just resume back now.
Yeah.
Nitish.
So yeah, interesting points here. I think I'd like to end this webinar, but with the last. So yeah, I'd like to end the webinar, but with the last one question. And this one question could be the easiest or the most exciting or the toughest, depending on how you see it or how your perception is, depending on how your individual self is. You could be relaxed or you could be stressed. So now the question is, what is the future of Neuphony? And what do you think is the future of neurofeedback and neuroscience in general?
First give you a disclaimer because I know we both would have different answers. And some people might see it as good, some that there is a lot of scope, and some people might see it as a conflict. But how we come from very different yet together reasons to do this. I come from a very impact and mental health space. For me, it's not unfortunately about technology here. I like that we are able to do this with technology, and that's why I'm doing this. And that's why it's not an NGO, or that's why it's a tech startup, but it's always driven with the what I can use, what I can do with what he does. And it all comes down to helping people understand themselves, helping people understand their patterns. I got to know about PTSD because he was doing an experiment on me. I got to know a lot about human behavior, brain. I am not a psychology background person, but when people talk to me because of my passion, they think that I come from that space. So, not that I'm saying this is something that one can gain, but yes, self awareness is very important. Self education is very important. We know everything about there is with regards to physical health. You know so much about HRV as an athlete. Why we as athletes don't know a lot about our mental health, why as we as business people don't know a lot about our mental health. And that is what my goal is, not just mental health. I know, and he knows that he cannot rest until there is a medical grade Neuphony device, which would be used in a stroke, epilepsy, ADHD scenario, where it helps people who have been diagnosed with medical conditions to help their lives be easy. According to me, how I think is that people who are um, paralyzed, people who are, let's say, handicapped, their best part is still working, which is the brain. Everything operating is still there. We should be able to support them by using that information, brain controlled wheelchair, thought recognition, all of that in an impact setting has to be used. Unfortunately, if a person is brain dead, at least there is nothing much that I think we can do to improve their situation, because that becomes a medical setting, or to be able to have them contribute and live their life the way they want to. But I do know that if the person is neurologically alive and their brain is fully operating and functioning, and then there is no damage, I mean like actual biological damage, there can still be a lot of scope. I know one of my relatives has, he had a injury as a kid, and one part of his brain is actually not there. It's like this. And the brain is so amazing with regards to that factors that whatever is left, it tries to create patterns with what is there. So if that amazing part is still alive, we should be able to help and amplify their life in a much better way with our technology. And that's what I want to do by understanding the whole concept of brain, and with different types and sets of people and with different issues to be able to contribute to their life. That is my vision of Neuphony.
Amazing.
And now he can tell how he will do this.
Yeah.
So I'm not contradicting with the vision. That's something that I am known from day one, that this is something that she is very passionate about, and you can see the amplitude level throughout the podcast, throughout the recording, and then see how she was talking in the last part. But one thing which I leave here as a teaser is I mentioned something regarding mental health, which is sleep, physical activity, and your meals. So stay tuned. Something is coming up that we'll do either in either of the scenarios, which might come up to be as a surprise, or maybe something that I see that we can actually start contributing to the vision that she has mentioned. Because, as I said, if you keep on just doing meditations or keep on consuming medications or do something which is maybe work for you but might not work for me or something like that, it is shooting something in the dark. Maybe majority of the people benefits from what Nitish does. There is 80% of the population that can be mentally and cognitively amazing if they follow what you are teaching, for example. But there is still 20% of population like me who need something different. Hence, I never say that I can create something which will be useful for everybody. Hence, I'm more into the tool creation of it. And hence, I said the three aspects that I mentioned, something we would do in this space, hopefully within this year. But by this year, I mean the Indian cycle, which is ending in March. So which Ria is saying, don't say anything more than this.
I
Yeah.
didn't say Indian, see, academic year. Don't say financial year.
Yes, Ria is like, don't say more than this. You have already told a lot. But I'll leave on that one.
Okay, we'll wait for Prashant's one last question.
Okay.
Meanwhile, I'll just briefly tell you all that uh, as Bhavya mentioned, that it's not just neurofeedback that will fix you. It's not just Neuphony that will fix you. It's everything that will fix you. A good volume of physical health, good volume of sleep, good volume of nutrition, and a good volume of taking care of your brain is something that you require to get better, to get the best out of yourselves, not only just to improve yourself from your own issue, but yeah, get the best out of yourself. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense to get the potentials perfect. Please go ahead, please live your life at the best, and use the most important part of your body as well. So yeah, cheers.